Hi, my name is Jürgen Handke.
My name is Björn Logischach.
My name is Dr. Peter Franke.
I am Natalie Kiesler.
My name is Yang.
My name is Natasha Devinziki.
My name is Freeman.
My name is Tietia.
Inverted classroom.
It might be has something to do with
Electronic presentation.
Inverted classroom model for me means
Freedom.
In recent years, the focus of teaching has shifted from traditional to less conventional methods of knowledge acquisition. More and more educational institutions have recognized different means of bringing knowledge to students, among which one that has become increasingly popular proposes the concept of turning the traditional in-class teaching the other way around. There are as many definitions for this model as realizations of it. Some call it the flipped classroom model, while others refer to it as the inverted classroom model. All in all, it has become a popular teaching method among lecturers covering a broad range of subjects, from linguistics to computer sciences and mathematics.
The inverted classroom model is a model of teaching and learning that flips the traditional phases of teaching and learning activities. Traditionally, you are taught in class, that is, content delivery and content acquisition takes place in class, and then you are sent home to do some homework, practicing exercises, and these two phases are flipped. Now, the in-class activity is basically one of practicing and rehearsing, and the outside class activity, which takes place prior to the in-class meeting, is the phase of content delivery and content acquisition.
Some lecturers recognize it mostly as a chance to allow the students to familiarize themselves with the material before the class.
It's about saving time in the classroom for group work, for discussions, by having the students watch videos up front so that I can simply skip the frontal part of the lecture.
For others, it simply provides means to express themselves and act more freely within the framework of each teaching unit.
To me, the inverted classroom model provides freedom for me as an instructor, because the whole idea is that basically people study the educational content beforehand, and so I don't have to teach them during the class. As a result, I have complete freedom as an instructor to do essentially whatever I want, what I see fit during the in-class sessions. So for me, in a nutshell, the ICM means additional freedom for more creativity.
Although mostly described as the virtual opposite of the traditional in-class model, there are still quite a few general characteristics to the inverted classroom model that are similar in regards to the lecture structure and the presented content. One of the most significant similarities that tends to remain the same is the subdivision of teaching units. The general idea is that the content of the lecture that traditionally would have been presented in the classroom covers approximately the same amount of material that is provided for students of the inverted classroom model who read the material before the actual class. As for the in-class sessions themselves, they also tend to be of the same length, although they may vary in terms of how the time is spent, which mostly depends on each individual lecturer.
Virtual sessions, as we call them, our online e-learning units, are designed for study time between 60 and 120 minutes. On average, 90 minutes of worth of content. That's what we have for a course that basically has a sequence of 13 or 14 units per semester. So 90 minutes of online study time, plus, of course, 90 minutes in-class activities.
Some lecturers have tried to incorporate as many elements as possible of the traditional teaching methods, but as this model is becoming increasingly popular and more broadly used in different fields, there can be observed a shift of the presentation of the content, mostly in terms of content delivery and design. The most common characteristics are that the content is available online and it is realized by various multimedia elements, such as videos, pictures, animations, and voice recordings.
Well, the inverted classroom model for me means that the content delivery is done first and online. That can take place in form of hypertext or also in form of videos. And then in the second phase, in the in-class meeting, I have time to practice with my students. So they can ask questions, we can have discussions, analyze further tasks, and that gives us the freedom to really answer every question and to make sure that every student understood the basic concepts.
There are various means of creating the content as well as organizing the in-class session, and although there are general similarities that can be observed, there are differences in how this model is realized by each individual. Each lecturer has different reasons for choosing this model, but mostly it can be observed that the longer a lecturer has been using the inverted classroom model, the more they are comfortable with the use of various multimedia tools as well as varying the in-class sessions themselves.
In fact, I use it all the time. I've been using it since about 2004 and 2006. I don't remember when we started using that model, but it came as an automatic consequence towards content delivery, and since then I've been using the model all the time. Well, the decision was basically one which is related to our subject. A subject like linguistics involves a lot of static content delivery, factual knowledge, declarative knowledge, where you really have to present some sort of content to students. And if you do that time and again, then you are somewhat bored, repeating yourself all the time. And I thought it would be a better idea to take that out of the in-class phase and reserve the in-class phase for something else, for practicing, discussing, and doing work together with the students.
The people who have invested in the use of the inverted classroom model generally tend to progress in their involvement with this model, gradually becoming more comfortable with the use of the various multimedia as well as the in-class teachings. Therefore, it can be concluded that there should be valid reasons for the increasing popularity and demand for this classroom model. It only stands to reason to question the motives behind it. Is this part of the laziness of lecturers who would be bothered less to stand in front of the classroom and enjoy the sound of their own voice, or students enjoying hand-cramp-free afternoons or the simple delight of shiny new visual and audio delights? Does this mean that lecturers and students actually prefer to communicate for the duration of all the class, which leads to the more morbid thought, is the traditional classroom model becoming a dying species?
Well, for me there are two central advantages. One thing is that I do not have to prepare content delivery anymore. The content is there, it's on the web. And the second thing is that I have now much more time for the students to work with, to go into problems, to talk about things they might not have understood after the first phase of content delivery. So we have far more lively in-class meetings than ever before. Let me give you an example from linguistics. Now, an essential concept in phonology is the phoneme. And in the past, in the early 1990s, I stood there every term explaining what a phoneme is to the students. And this explanation gobbled up about 90 minutes each time. And then I was ready, and I was not sure, do they now know what a phoneme is? Do they understand it? Today, the phoneme is explained in terms of a video. In fact, it's one of the most popular videos in our YouTube channel. And I can now go in class. I won't say any word about the phoneme. I just give them data from Korean, from Tatar, your language, from other languages, and we analyze data and analyze it phonemically. And I think that explains the success of the model, that we have more time doing these things and the rest is outside the class.
Not only does the inverted classroom model give the students more freedom in terms of the access and use of information, but among other perks, it also allows them to be the master of their own time. Well, in their own time. These aspects are usually realized through various technologies, which tend to be popular among the technologically savvy lecturers as well as students.
Many students today are used to using their smartphones, they're used to using the computers or their tablets. They get the knowledge from the web, so this is nothing very new for them.
I choose to use videos in my classes because students can watch them online. They are available on YouTube, so everyone can access them. Students can also repeat them as often as they like and need. Some students need to repeat things more often than others, of course. And then in my in-class sessions, I don't need to repeat basic content or procedures or technologies anymore.
Nevertheless, one should consider each aspect critically, since even the seemingly most positive characteristics of the inverted classroom model can reveal a shadow side upon closer observation, the most prominent being complacency, lack of technology skills, or issues with the technology used within this model.
The main disadvantage, I think, is on the student side, especially in situations where they have little or no access to the materials that they have to go through prior to the in-class meeting. This can be due to technical failures, but it can also be due to their own failures. They don't have any time, or they simply are a little bit lazy. And this is something which we have to overcome. But apart from that, I don't see too severe problems with the model.
These issues should not, however, discourage the users of the inverted classroom model, since there are various methods that can be applied to prevent the misuse of information or simply discourage the inborn laziness or lack of motivation of some individuals.
We can minimize these advantages by using some sort of very effective control system. We have to control that the students go through the digital materials prior to the in-class meeting. This can be done by means of various options. For example, we can add tests to the content delivery, or we can implement some sort of grading systems. We can implement some sort of ranking or high score systems to motivate the students to come to grips with the digital material before you go into the in-class meeting.
I really like that it frees up all the actual in-class time, so you can really discuss about the material and don't just have to learn it. You can use it in some way. That's great. I have the feeling it kind of takes the teachers out of their job. For me, it's like they recycle the material every year, and they're not really flexible. If there's something new in the research, they kind of have to ignore it or update the whole system, which I don't think they really do. Also, I think if someone is a teacher, they should actually teach and not let a program.
Well, what we use is the feedback mechanism. Often students send us use the feedback mechanism to send us error reports, things that they find are not working. For example, they're working on some kind of e-learning unit. They're doing a tutor exercise. This is a message that I received the other night, where people are doing an exercise and all of a sudden sounds are not playing, or a certain animation is not working. And then basically they notify, we have a special email address on the VLC that they can use to submit the error reports through the feedback mechanism that is embedded in our e-learning units. And as a result, we immediately receive the feedback, and then we can send it to the appropriate team member. Or I can, being the recipient, I can deal with it myself in some cases. In other cases, I have to forward it to my colleagues.
These concerns not only touch the students, but also involve the lecturers, since a prominent concern is also the technology involved in creating the content and the use of it during the in-class sessions.
One of the disadvantages of the inverted classroom models is probably the high dependency on technology if you're using videos and hypertext. But you can avoid that as well, because you just have to plan ahead with the production of your videos. You need to start with the production very early in the semester, probably even before the semester starts, because you still need students to give the time to watch the videos before the next in-class session. And from my experience, if you have the content available already, the production time for one video is between 12 to 15 hours, only for a 15 minutes video. So take that into consideration.
From the observations of the various lecturers as well as students, we can be quite certain that the traditional classroom model is not quite ready to fully give way to the inverted classroom model, although, besides the certain challenges it faces, the offered possibilities are oh so tempting. And the ambitious front-runner of the various benefits would be interactivity. Why? It's quite a simple concept. By having in-class meetings after the information has already been read, the inverted classroom model actually encourages the students to talk. A lot. Question, examine, challenge, discuss. all with the guidance and support of the lecturer. The how is the difficult part of this concept. How to make sure the material has actually been assessed, read, understood, so that a positive and productive interaction can be facilitated.
My way to monitor students' progress and to make sure to motivate them is the new usage of the in-class session. Since I have more time for questions and discussions, I'm using it for questions and discussions. So I make sure that every student has the room and we have the time to ask their individual questions on the topic. So after every in-class session, I can really make sure that every student understood all the basic concepts, strategies, or technologies.
Actually, the monitoring of the students' progress is part of the inverted classroom. I'm not doing any specific tests, for instance. I walk around and see what happens. I see if some computation goes wrong in mathematics. I see nice solutions that may come up in mathematics, the same in computer science. Every student works on his or her own program on the computer or on paper. I look over their shoulders, I talk to them, and I see what's happening. That's far better than some written examination.
And another how that is important to address: how to motivate students to be interested in studying without actually being present all the time during the process. Since the model encourages the students to do more independent studying, reading the material wherever and whenever they can, it would be counterproductive to poke and prod at every single step, all the way to the in-class sessions. Thus, lecturers have to come up with more creative ways to encourage their pupils to dedicate themselves to the studying and prepare for the in-class sessions.
Teaching, however, is different now. You're no longer the deliverer of knowledge, you are the guide on the side, the scout, you are a sort of knowledge scout. And preparation for an in-class meeting is still necessary, but preparation is totally different. Now you have to prepare things that keep your students going. Questions, you have to think about questions you want to solve with them. You have to think about interactive elements where students can come to the front and solve problems. You have to think about your audience, who will be there, will there be speakers of several languages, and so on. So there's a lot of things to be adhered to when you go into class, but it's all different. But from my point of view, it's fun. It's just fun, and it's much less boring than talking about the same thing time and again.
While a great part of the responsibility lies with the lecturers to encourage students to get involved, the students themselves also have to work independently, or the lecturers have to take a more aggressive approach in motivating them.
Students should have some sort of inherent motivation themselves, so you have to push them. Pushing them can, of course, be, one method could be exert pressure. Pressure in terms of applying tests. So a test always pressurizes students because tests involve grades, and grades should be good.
People, meaning lecturers and students, involved in the interaction within the framework of the inverted classroom model is but a small part of the whole concept. One should look beneath the surface to find everything that constitutes this model: people, technology, and other resources. The first thing we familiarize ourselves with is the environment, so-called platform, used to present content. They differ, of course, mainly based on what each lecturer deems to be necessary or can afford.
We use two platforms. One is the Virtual Linguistics Campus, and the second is YouTube. And the combination of these two allows us to, on the one hand, deliver the material as efficiently as possible, and on the other hand, if you have some sort of e-educational platform in the background, you can deliver e-assessment, and you have the database where you can control the students. So you definitely need one e-education platform and a good platform to deliver the multimedial content.
Depending on the content presented in the platform, the people and technology involved vary significantly.
Well, for the in-class phases, you obviously need very little technology. What you basically need is just a room where people can meet and have their discussions. That's essentially it. So, in the minimum case, no technology at all. But For the online component, you need much more technology. You need, of course, a web server that provides the environment, that hosts the environment and the content, and the learners obviously need a computer or some other device with internet access and an appropriate web browser to experience the online content.
You first of all have to develop the content. Now, content development is very complicated. If it is multimedial content, then I would normally say you need a really professional and big team, because multimedia is probably most problematic to produce if it is more than just text and pictures. For the production of videos, you need a studio and you need the software and you need some sort of ability of creating video scripts. Here the scripting task is very important. You cannot simply stand in front of a camera and start talking. That would be no good. So you have to really plan the video production very precisely and very efficiently. So planning and teamwork is highly important in both of these.
There are various challenges facing the inverted classroom model, but surprisingly enough for some, they do not come in the form of content or its design and maintenance.
Actually, the major difficulties are not technical in nature. I mean, the software and the server-side platforms are all there and they are well established. The major challenge that we have found, we the people from the VLC, is inside people's heads. Changing mindsets is the biggest problem in the implementation of ICM. Because simply, instructors are not willing to change their ways of teaching. We rarely find an instructor who is willing to try something new. Most of them have their proven techniques of teaching, they have their approaches, and they don't see the need or they're not willing to try anything new. So the major challenge is not really technical in nature. Of course, all things can always go wrong. The server may fail or errors in the content may show up, but still, in the implementation of e-learning, what we have to do first is of the ICM, what we have to do first is to convince people to change their ways of teaching, to try something new.
While looking at all of the technology, disciplines and people involved in creating, managing and participating in the inverted classroom model, one can try to answer one more question. Where? Where will it lead? Which direction will the development of ICM take in the future?
So concerning the future, I predict that video, at least for the next 10 years, plays a leading role in the academic world. We have things like YouTube and other channels, they're open, we have Udacity, we have iTunes, we have lots of things where you can produce excellent video for teaching, and the universities in the world, they will use this. And those who will not use this, they will gradually encapsulate themselves and probably isolate themselves. The universities in the world are now competitors in a global context. So if you study a certain subject, then the first thing you do is you consult YouTube and try to find out, is there something for me? And if there's the appropriate topic taught by a person from the United States, you will certainly select the Nobel Prize winning teacher who teaches that stuff as compared with Professor Smith from somewhere. So what can universities do? Universities, of course, should produce these videos, should produce these e-lectures, but they should offer a very important in-class phase on top of that. And this is where the chance lies. Do you want to study online, just doing videos, or do you want to study videos plus an excellent in-class phase? I would prefer the second. And I think that's what the majority of people still want.
Alice, type something. Tell something.
I don't know what to say.
So what was your question again?